This video demonstrates points, lines, and polygon labeling inside Trimble Business Center version 3.50. Here's our tutorial datasets on processing feature codes in which we have some points, lines, and polygon features. So we'll start with showing how to label lines. So if you launch the label lines command from the CAD labeling group in the ribbon, notice that the first thing you need to select is label style. So TBC comes with a standard label style. If you want to create your new labeling style, you can just go to the drop down and select new, or you can launch the label style manager. So here we're going to launch the label style manager, and as you can see in the line styles we have this standard label style. We can create our new style and call it my TBC, and we can also choose a text style that's associated to it. We can pick the existing text style, or we can simply choose a new text style, so my text, and say OK. Under the lines, you notice that you have different label types you can label. So let's say we want to label line length, we can add it. So we can see here that the label is just on top of the line feature with this gap parameter here. You can kind of create that separation, and the spacing, if you have a multiple labels on the same side of the feature, that spacing is going to define how far apart those labels are. Let's say we also want to add azimuth here, and say add, and we can now use arrows to move this azimuth label up and down or along the object. Similarly, we can set up our label styles for point labeling, and notice that under point labels you have different elements that you can label, same as under polygon styles you have different elements that you can label under the polygon style. Under the line styles you also have tab for arcs, so for arcs you can choose different elements that are associated to arcs. So once we have our label style set up, so my TBC label style, we can select segment to label, so we can label individual segments. So if you just click on a segment, you notice that the label shows up. You can just continue clicking on segments and it will display the label. Or if you move to the multi-select and you do Control A, you can select the whole drawing and say add. So notice this adds labels to the entire drawing. This allows you to label your drawing quickly and efficiently. If you want to remove labels, so in this case you have two lines that are running in parallel, you can simply click in the segment label window and click on a little segment, and that will remove a label. So if I click on this one too, that will remove the second label as well. If I click on the line again, I get that label back. Very similarly, you can launch the label points command, select points to label, so you can do Control A and say add. Notice it will add all of the point labels. In this case our text style may have been too big. We can simply go to the text style, and point labels was using the standard style, so from 20 we can change this to 2, say OK. Notice all of our labels have been, for points, have been automatically reduced. In this case I don't like how far apart this point label is from the actual point node. In that case we can open the label style manager, go to the point style, and change this gap from 10 to 1. That brings our labels closer to the points. Say OK, and notice now our labels are much closer to the points. Similarly, you can launch a label polygon command, and here I think we have a polygon. You can simply select this one polygon, or you can do a multi-polygon selection and say add, and notice that here we are labeling the name of the polygon and the square area. So in case you want to add more elements to it, you can simply go back to your label style manager, open your polygon styles and modify your standard style and say besides name and the area, I want to add the perimeter and say add. Here you get a preview so you can move the perimeter to the bottom, say OK, and notice the labels have been updated here. So one thing to note about labeling is that it's dynamic. So let's say you have a line string, we'll simply create one quickly. Say this is our line string, and let's say it transitions into an arc. And now we want to label this line string. We're going to call label lines command. So in this case we can use the standard label style and say select a segment here, say add. Some of the segments are not actually displaying. If I change this to minimum line length to 2, I get this small segment here to display as well. So you can, with the minimum line length, you can determine what segments do you want visible or not. So in this case, the labels are too far from the line. I can simply go back to the label style manager and I can change my standard gap again to be 1 and say OK. That updates them automatically. In case I want to display bearing instead of an azimuth here, I can go to the project settings and under units change the azimuth display to bearing and say OK. Notice now I have the bearing here. Also, if I select this line string and go to edit, notice that this distance here is now 11.034. If I move that line here, that distance and label automatically updates, same as for these other arc segments. So that concludes our video on how to label points, lines and polygons inside TBC version 350.